We've talked about the employment relationship as being characterised by conflicting interests, by interests that are divergent and opposed, so that conflict over these different interests is a natural and inevitable outgrowth of the employment relationship. Forms of bargaining within the employment relationship, we might think, therefore, are intrinsically going to be conflictual, are intrinsically going to be a zero-sum game, where for one side to gain an advantage, the other side has to suffer a disadvantage. For one side to win, the other side has to lose. Now, Walton and McKersey's groundbreaking study of bargaining behaviour identifies a particular approach towards bargaining which isn't characterised by zero-sum or win-lose at all. It's characterised as a positive-sum game. It's characterised as win-win, where both sides, through high levels of trust, high levels of engagement with each other, high levels of imagination, can identify and to resolve problems and issues between them in ways in which both sides win. Now, theoretically, we might imagine that this can result in equal gains for both parties. In reality, whilst this is a difficult thing to achieve at all, in reality, the split is always going to be less even, less neat than this, with one side perhaps having to take smaller gains than the other, or that over certain issues, one side might have to make small sacrifices in order for the relationship as a whole to achieve large gains. But this process that Walton and McKersey called integrative bargaining provides a very different sort of framework to the kind of industrial relations bargaining that we're perhaps more familiar with. Now, the kinds of situations in which integrative bargaining can take place are constrained. It's not always possible to achieve or to undertake this kind of approach, because there are some issues in which there simply isn't the potential to split a gain. So, for example, a very straightforward pay increase. If the employees in an organisation require more money with no balancing increase in revenue from the organisation, then more money for employees equals less money for the shareholders. There's a simple win-lose trade-off in those situations. However, there are all kinds of opportunities for gain sharing, for productivity deals, to be able to achieve win-win, so that employees are able to gain more advantage in terms of money in their pay packet. And because of that, that the organisation is able to secure greater productivity, greater revenue, more efficiency, whatever it might be. But what we're looking for are issues, problems in which at least one solution exists which allows both parties to improve their position, for employers and employees to gain something out of the process, or problems in which the solution requires no more than a token sacrifice from one party in order for the other party to achieve a substantial gain. So we're dealing with a subset of issues within the employment relationship. Not every issue is capable of being dealt with integratively. If we do attempt to resolve problems in this way, then we require certain types of behaviour that are different from those that are typically employed within employment relations bargaining. Now, we'll talk about traditional bargaining behaviour at a different time, but here We're looking for cooperation. We're looking for trust. We're looking for both sides of the bargaining table to come together, to focus on the problem rather than focusing on their issues, and to throw as many ideas on the table as possible in order that we can sort through and identify those solutions which provide benefits to both sides. Now, this is difficult. It's time-consuming. It requires a great deal of trust, much more so than in traditional bargaining behaviour. So motivation to solve these problems is very, very important. And problems can occur when we attempt to go down this route where one side is more committed to the approach than the other. So the nature of the relationship between bargainers is a very important part of this process. Because we're looking for imagination and we're looking for a range of potential solutions to any particular problem, then we're trying to open up the information exchange. We want as much information about the problem as we can possibly get. We need to brainstorm. We need to be able to express our thoughts and our feelings, our reservations, very clearly. So verbal competence is very important. Analysis, being able to work through the consequences of a particular potential solution to an issue is very important. So we can look further down the line about maybe some unanticipated problems. We don't want those unanticipated problems. We want to be able to anticipate them. So verbal competence, communication. We need to have as many eyes on a problem. We need to have as many talkers on a problem. We need to have multiple communication channels, maximizing information exchange in order to help solve those problems. And above all else, we need a trusting and supportive climate within which that problem solving can take place so that people aren't constantly pulling their punches. They're not hiding their cards. They're not keeping their powder dry. All of these traditional behaviours that we associate with employment relations bargaining, we need to do the opposite of those things in this form of bargaining.